Hey there, it's Blair here at Time Trades, and I'm here to explain why it's a trap. All right, so I tweeted this out over the weekend, and it deserves some explanation. And the source of the explanation is really Brad Cowans' amazing book called Pentagonal Time Cycle Theory. Really want to recommend this. It's a great value. There's the link. If you want to understand the rationale behind this in the way that I'm about to explain, this book does an amazing job explaining the basis. All right, so it comes down to what was happening in the sky on May 17th, 1792. Why is that date important? Well, that is the date of the Buttonwood Agreement, which created the New York Stock Exchange. And on that date, we had an interesting complex of relationships between Saturn over here, this funny looking H is at 23 degrees helio, and that was 144 degrees away from Mercury and Earth, and 180 degrees away from Jupiter and Mars. And Venus is over here at 3 degrees. So what was happening was really a pentagonal relationship with Saturn at the center of it. Okay, and this pentagon that was defined on this date has echoed into the future and created important inflection points. And Brad's book does a great job explaining that. So this is what he calls the Great Pentagram, all right? And these are the points on that pentagram. So what happens is Earth and all the other planets pass these points. Earth passes these points once a year in its orbit. So it touches all 5 of these points in one orbit, of course. And so every year it's the same day, May 17th, July 31st. We've got October 13th coming up, December 23rd, and March 4th. You may recognize some of these dates as these can be dates where big moves happen. Often there's a big move in the spring or a big move in the fall. In 2018, there was a Christmas crash. So this is the reason for this seasonality that occurs in the stock market. So how has this performed in the past? Well, if we look at the crash of 1962, as explained in Brad's book on page 118, we have Earth 144 degrees away from Saturn and Jupiter and Mars, and also 144 degrees away from Venus. So that was a very rare alignment where we had this 144 degree offset, and not just any offset, but the offset was centered around these points on the pentagram. That is very rare, and that is what led to a 28% drop in the next 3 months. The 1973-74 bear market ended on the pentagram. It started with Uranus at the 200-degree mark, which is an inner angle on the pentagram. But on the outer angles, the planets arriving at the outer points on the pentagram defined the end of the 73-74 bear market in December 1974. And then the 87 crash, of course, this had key planets at major points on the pentagram as well, with Earth and Jupiter at one outer angle on the pentagram, 144 degrees away from Venus and 144 degrees away from Mars, and Mercury was at one of the inner angles. So what is interesting about October 13th this year? Well, we have Mars at 240, slightly past 239. We have Earth at 20, just before 23. We have Chiron at 25, just after 23. And we have Uranus at one of the inner angles over here. So we've got our Mars-Uranus opposition, but that in itself isn't enough to justify Admiral Akbar calling it a trap. It is the fact that Mars and Uranus are opposite on these points on the pentagram. That is what makes me bring out the Akbar meme. When you go to one of the few sites on the web called AstroSeek that lets you display heliocentric charts, this is what you see. We have Mars opposite Uranus, we have Mars square Venus, we have Venus square Uranus, and Earth square Jupiter. That is this whole construct here, plus Earth square Jupiter. That's that red line. And then on the positive side, we've got Saturn, Neptune over here, trine, or 120 degrees opposite from, here's Saturn, Neptune, here's 120 degrees from Mars, and here's Saturn, Neptune, sextile Venus, and we also have Earth and Moon, which are trine Mercury. So it's not all negative. There are some positive aspects here, but it is, on the whole, an important date. And given the massive recent run-up, I believe that we are on the verge of at least correction of high single-digit percent or maybe more. So how did I find this? Well, I want to show you the work that I do, which is building tooling on TradingView that allows me to look into the future and see where the planets are. So this is a script that I've created called Time Trade's Planetary Lines Outer Current. It's part of the Time Trade service. And when I add this script, it displays in the data window over here the locations of the planets. So I can just move my mouse over to the right on any cryptocurrency and it will display the locations of the planets. So over the weekend, I was curious about what was happening in the near future, and I noticed that we had Mars-Uranus synodic coming up to 180 degrees. So you can see on the right-hand side there that on the 13th, Mars-Uranus synodic reads 180.66. On Sunday, it's 180.16. So those oppositions tend to be important points. And the thing with heliocentric work is it's actually very difficult to find a good website to get information on it. So that's one of the things I've done with the Time Trade service is I really tried to surface these heliocentric, geocentric, and synodic relationships between the planets in the data window right inside TradingView, so you don't have to go out to astrology websites to get that kind of timing information. All right, so that's it for this quick video. I hope you found that interesting. Reach out to me if you've got any questions, and take care, manage your risk, and none of what I talked about is financial advice. Thanks.